welcome to Makers and Movers, the podcast that unveils the extraordinary journeys of leaders in manufacturing. I'm Andrea Hoffer, your host for this podcast. Today we have the pleasure of speaking with Yujin Anderson, and I'm so excited to bring her on and hear about her extraordinary story. So Yujin, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Andrea. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. So I want to start off by just hearing about your journey, hearing about where your career started and how you became the CEO of Steam America. Americas with an S.
Okay, so my journey with my company really started with my dad's invention. I I grew up in South Korea. My parents are still there. Um, my dad was a marine engineer working for a major ship making company. So he knew steam boilers very well. So my company, by the way, we manufacture and distribute what's known as the Optima steamer. And what it does is it works like a pressure washer, but with very little water. To give you an idea, a typical pressure washer uses about 5 gallons a minute or more. Our product uses about 0.08 gallon per minute, but it produces dry steam, not hot water. So that's what we do. So my dad, studied engineering. He was a marine engineer for a big corporation. And he decided that he wanted to do something for himself because he grew up in extreme poverty post-Korean War. So he knew that the only way he could really accumulate wealth is to have his own business. So in doing so, he started by importing and selling pressure washers from Europe, industrial cleaning equipment, basically. And he grew his business. And around 2006, he had a customer of his who was a pressure washer customer, but had a complaint that the pressure washer uses a bit too much water, and the wastewater from it can become very dangerous when it freezes over in wintertime. So the customer said, well, can you make something that cleans this well and with heat, but doesn't generate as much pressure, wastewater runoff? And that's when the light bulbs went up for him, because, oh, hey, I know how steam boilers work. That's what I did. And I know how to make them, how to, design them, service them. So he basically retrofitted a steam boiler inside a pressure washer. And that was the prototype of the Optima steamer.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was his business. And I wasn't in that career path. I was in the US. I got my bachelor's at the University of Notre Dame. And then I was working in Chicago in advertising, actually. And one winter, I went home for Christmas and I helped my dad set up his company's Google AdWords program. Very basic, didn't take me more than 2 hours without, I didn't think much of it. And lo and behold, 2 weeks later, things kind of blew up. So he was getting all these leads from all over the world, and he didn't know what to do because he didn't have a sales team. He didn't have an international sales team. I mean, definitely not. So I was working at night, helping him with leads in English, so that, trying to reply to those leads. And then I had my day job. And eventually I said, okay, well, I know my dad tried to get me to work for him for many years, but I do feel that I could help him. I could help him grow his business. It's a great product. it could be used in many different areas. So that's when I decided to help him or join him. And I moved back to Korea for 6 months to learn the product. I was in the production line, learning how it's built. I had to build a couple to learn it. I wasn't very good at it, but I did. And so, learning how it's made and also how to service the product. And eventually in 2010, we opened a warehouse for North America, which was in Carson, California. So that was our first location, but we're still in LA County.
Okay.
Um, yeah,
Okay. So I do want to hear about your journey a little bit deeper into the company. But before we do that, could you share with us what are some of the uses for the product? Why was this such
sure.
an amazing invention that, that,
So
go ahead.
yeah, so in the beginning, the very evident market was car wash market because it's often done in a very populated area.
Hmm.
With using steam, you can wash your car without having a permit or having the whole wastewater reclamation system or running wastewater runoff. Um, so it made the process really simple and flexible for car wash operators. Uh, but the kicker was that you can wash your car. Well, with the right technique, you can wash your car with 1 or 2 gallons of water versus 100 gallons or more. So that
Wow.
was our
Big difference.
first industry. Yeah, very big difference. And especially for interior cleaning of vehicles, dry steam is just perfect. So it's having an air compressor and having the heat and a little flow. So it can clean pretty much any part of the car really well, especially inside. So there was the market that the market found us, honestly. And then when we started our journey to have distribution centers outside the factory in South Korea, US being one of them, um, we started working with dealers who would buy a product and resell. And some of the dealers they have different industry strengths. So, for example, my dealer in Oregon, he's his existing customer base was wineries, and he thought, this would be great for wineries, and it turned out to be, he was absolutely right, and he really helped us. Pioneer that market. And he helped us design the prototypes of, wine, the barrel tool that we use to transport the steam um, efficiently to barrels. So the wineries or even breweries, these barrels that oak barrels they use can be very expensive. So it's in winemakers' best interest to be able to reuse them for more than one season. I think they usually typically target 3 to 5 years, 5 seasons. And if you don't take care of them properly, you have pathogen issues, specifically Brettanomyces, that will, you know, basically it will sour the entire batch. So they want to make sure they get rid of those pathogens and also to seal up or rehydrate those barrels before they use them for the next season.
Hmm.
So yeah, and then I would say the other big market that I would say we are really busy with right now is food processing. So food processors and they have to be extra careful with food safety. So they use our product to clean and sanitize food, making or packaging equipment.
Wow. And this all came out of one of your father's clients saying, "Hey, can
Yeah,
you tinker with this and make it
yeah.
so that it uses less water?" Well, that's
Hmm.
really amazing. So now tell us about your father convinced you to come into the company, right? tell us how that happened. What was your thinking process? How did you make that decision? I know you already had a successful career going on. What happened there?
So it really came down to the impact I could make for his company versus the employer I was working for at the time. Great employer. I'm still very grateful that I had a chance to work there, and they have been since then bought by bigger companies over and over. So I'm proud to say I worked there once. Um, but I knew that me not being there wouldn't, you know, affect them nearly as much as me being at my dad's company working with for him. So when I first came here, I knew that we had to localize, everything because there are a lot of manufacturers in Asia, um, but the reason Americans are hesitant to do business with them is I don't know if we can trust them. I don't know if they understand how we do business. And like one of the key differences I would say is in the US we have a credit culture. So you buy products and you pay on net term, net 30, net 90, what have you. Um, I think for the most part of the world outside the US, that really doesn't exist. You pay before you ship.
Mm.
You get your product shipped out. So that's something that I had to work on. That means that I had to be, sort of a bank, right, for my clients, because they're not gonna pay until they get the product and 30 days have passed. But I have to pay our factory before we get the product. So um, so that's a huge difference, I think, doing business internationally. Um, but I don't know if I'm answering your question though.
Yeah, well, that's an interesting thing of what you shared. Uh,
Yeah.
I just wanted to know what was going through your mind when you made that shift, because you left a career path that you had worked very hard in
Mhm.
and made a lot of strides to go into something entrepreneurial with family. So,
Yeah.
what were some of the things that went through your mind? Not just the risk, but in working with your family. And what kind of challenges have come up since then?
Oh yeah. So it actually brought us closer, I would say, because I wasn't one of the kids who will call parents every other day or every weekend in college.
Mm.
I almost never called them until I really needed something from them. So I was very independent. So I think that being in the business together brought us together because we had to communicate more often. So during those business conversations you hear updates from family members. So I felt like without that, I honestly I think I would be living a completely different lifestyle. I mean, of course, but just from family relationships, I think it would have been very different. I don't think I would be as close as I would be now to them. um so that was a good thing.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I know that you had mentioned to me previously that during the pandemic,
Mhm.
certain things happened in your family that led you to spend some time in Korea. Could you talk to
Yes.
us? Do you mind sharing that story?
Yeah, no, not at all.
Okay.
So when the pandemic started, I remember that day very clearly. March 15th, I was in a hospital because my daughter was hospitalized for some unknown virus, very much like the flu, except she couldn't walk.
Oh.
So she had to be hospitalized so that they could flush out her system with IV. I mean, the treatment wasn't anything special; it was fluid. Um, but apparently, flu viruses can attack muscles, and kids and senior citizens who have weak immune system, they really could get affected by them. I had no idea. So this was happening, and I see Governor Newsom closing down the state. I'm also 7 months pregnant with my third child at this point, and um, and I'm trying to figure out how do we run the business remotely, and all these things are going on. And once my daughter got home, thank God she was okay after all. um, we were getting, I guess, used to, I don't know if it's the right word, but we were trying to get used to the homeschooling and working remotely, and all the new norms. And my husband had this severe headache, and all of a sudden, and he couldn't function unless he is lying down. And so that went on for about a month. And of course, seeking for medical help was very difficult at the time because everything was sort of a remote virtual consultation. I mean, it took over a month to get an MRI for him. And make the long story short, he was diagnosed with something called CFS leak. And that's basically your brain fluid leaking from where it's supposed to be. um, so he needed a brain surgery,
Mm.
and it was not easy to get a surgery date at UCLA at the time. Oh, I mean, it was everywhere, anywhere, I think, because of COVID being so new. And Korea at the time had already seen some cases, but they were handling it a lot better than I would say we did in the US. So things were still open. They had a lot of restrictions, but things were open. People were still going to school, working. Um, so I called my dad, and he said, "Just come to Korea." So thankfully, the doctor in UCLA had a friend or peer from a neurosurgeon in Busan, South Korea, where my parents live. So we flew to Korea without like I think I made a decision, and we flew like 2 days after that, um, with two kids. And we ended up living there for over a year, because after my husband got better after getting the surgery, when we were ready to return in the fall of 2020, the school wasn't open in California. So I had to make a decision, like, do I go back? And I can't keep homeschooling and running business at the same time. So we decided to stay put in Korea, where kids could go to school. And I, tried to run the business remotely, but didn't. I think that I was kind of fooling myself. So I had to delegate a lot of things to my staff. And I think of that now, looking back, it was blessing in disguise, because I think I used to be a more like a very micromanaging managing type of, like, I do it myself type of boss. Like, I work really hard, but I don't think I was a good manager or leader. Um, but through the experience, I had to do it. I didn't have any other options. I relied fully on my staff to run the business. And then whenever something came up, we will find time to talk over time difference. And yeah, so that was, I mean, for my personal life, it was, it was
Yeah.
crazy. And because I also had a baby as soon as like 2 weeks after my husband got surgery, I had a baby too. So
Ugh.
there was a lot going on
Yeah.
personally. But really, like, I think through the experience, I had no choice but to rely on my staff. And that was the start of my journey of, like, yeah, let's start building a team managed company.
Mm. Incredible story. When you shared that with me the other day, I was like, wait, I have to bring this story to my listeners. I, even hearing it again, I'm just awed. And I love that you take a lesson from it, right? That you see
Mm.
some sort of wisdom, some sort of blessing from it. And I did ask before, I want to make sure the listeners know both your husband is doing well now, right? You had said. Just want to
Yes,
make sure
he's doing very well. Thank you.
that
Yes.
we mention that. So tell me now, you learned how to delegate out of necessity. Has that continued? Have you found a different leadership style for yourself as you continue, now that you're back in California, correct?
Hmm. Yeah,
How
yeah.
do you manage your team now? How do you lead them? What kind of leader are you?
I think I still have a lot of work to be. I still have a lot of work to get done. In terms of improving myself as a leader.
We all do.
I though I think though I trust my staff. And also you know letting it, let go, right? Sometimes things are not going to be done perfectly. Sure, if you do it yourself, you might have done it better, but you know, um, you can't be everywhere. So I guess I take less stress from knowing that, things do sometimes fall through the cracks or not done exactly the way I want, but I'm okay with it now. I guess let's just put it that way.
That's great. And what do you look for in your team members?
Being a small business, I'm glad you asked the question because we have open positions right now,
And
many of them.
we can share those as well. But so let's explore who's a good team member for you? What kind of characteristics? What kind of culture do you have? Who would be a great person to join your
Hmm.
team?
I think a person definitely has to be, curious and has a hunger for learning and to improve. Um, we are a small company. We have limited resources, even for onboarding, which I'm trying hard to fix right now, by the way. You're gonna not gonna find answers for everything, like, find out, like, laid out in a silver platter for you. You have to figure out where could this answer be if, my boss is not available. So you have to be resourceful. And I think, in this day and age, you have to be able to use technology. You have to be able to leverage technology. Not gonna say I need, like I still have a lot. I don't know all the technologies, but I know enough that I need to utilize more when I need to. But I always say to my staff, one of our core values is work smart and hard.
Mm.
So one of the employees in the past told me, is that a typo? I mean, and you want me to work smart and hard? Or you mean you meant just work smart? No, I want to work smart and hard because there's still place for human brain, like even with AI tools coming up. It's still there's still space for human ingenuity, and that's what I need. If I just needed somebody to do the grunt work, yeah, I will just figure something out with AI and do that. It'll be a lot cheaper in the long run. But I need you to leverage technology, but you still need to put in work, hard work. I'm looking for people with good work ethics for sure, um, but who's curious and who wants to learn and improve. Um, not, so that's big. And also, I take seriously that my employees are, here for the long run. And I also want to make sure that we can provide that long-term growth, um, career path growth. So sometimes I have to let go of candidates that are like really excellent, but I just see that they won't be happy in 3 years because I will get a lot out of them, but then I don't think they will after 3 years, and that's not a good fit. So it has to be mutual long-term benefits for both parties involved. Um, so yeah, that I think those explain what I'm looking for. I mean, there are a lot, but there's a long list, but the important things for me.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great list, and I think it's very specific, and it helps people to see. I hope if there's anybody out there listening, and I do want to investigate and hear exactly
Yeah.
what you need as far as positions in case there's somebody out there that might be looking. I love that you talked about the need for that human aspect, the human,
Mhm.
the human brain. AI is just huge, and I didn't plan to get into AI at all on this episode, but I just wanted to point out how your need is not just for something that a computer can do, but for the human aspect that puts in that effort, puts in their smarts, and
Hmm.
like you said, uses the technology to maybe be more productive. And so I think that is something that is a topic that's discussed a lot right now with all these concerns around, is AI gonna take my job? And from what we're hearing from you, no, AI would not be able to replace the opportunities that you have available. Is that, am I getting this correct here?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
I agree. What
So,
you say, yes.
so tell us, what are the roles that you need filled?
Currently, I have an office manager role open. Who would, this position would work very closely with me. And we have two sales positions open. And the sales position that's new, I am a bit ashamed to say we never actually had, full out biz dev sales people before in this organization. We were able to generate leads, through just, being present on the web. We are not particularly uh, involved with social media. We have presence, but not like we don't invest too much in that because we are in industrial capital equipment business, and people are not gonna buy something because it's cool. It costs tens of thousands of dollars. So really, we've been not aggressive or proactive about seeking out leads in the past or prospects, but that has to change to grow the company. So we have sales positions open as well.
And I'm assuming the office manager, that's an in-office role, is that correct? So that would
Hmm.
be
Yes.
local. The sales roles, are they local or can they be in another part of the country? Is this a remote position, hybrid? How do those work?
Um, I, be- I believe that in the beginning we would prefer to be local in office position for better training. We've tried a few different things with inside sales and other positions, but I do think that people learn best in person.
Similar to you,
Yeah.
when you went to Korea for 6 months
Yeah.
and learned it
Yeah. I mean, I
hands-on,
feel,
so it's embedded in your culture
yeah.
already.
Right, right. I mean, I kind of said, like, I feel like I said the opposite, like, oh, the leverage the technology. That's very true. I mean, before COVID, I don't think we were doing this Zoom, right, as
Mhm.
often as we are doing now. It's very comfortable for everybody to be uh, hopping on a video chat. Um, but I think there's still, something that you cannot replace by learning in person. Even like even though we have great tools, I think it's a good alternative. But if I had to pick, I think still I prefer in person learning
Right.
and teaching. Yeah.
Well, we'll make sure that we include your website in the podcast notes and the episode notes. Do you have these positions listed on your website? So if somebody's interested, they could check them out there and submit an application?
I think we have a link to our Indeed account, so make sure that that's on
Yeah,
after
we,
this
we can
episode. Yeah.
definitely add that to the show notes
Yeah.
as well. So we only have a couple of minutes left, and I feel like I could spend another hour or two with you. You have so many interesting stories to share. What is one thing you want to uh, leave us with? One insight, something that you've learned over the years?
Oh my. um, I think I guess I'm gonna talk more business. I think it could be some. I mean, uh, I could get very philosophical too, but I think I'm gonna just talk about something that I really wish I'd done in beginning of the business is that you gotta be able to take risks. Like I when I started in 2010, it was not an easy environment for businesses. If you remember, we were just coming out of 2008 recession. But because our product had a value, especially for those who might have just gotten laid off, but they wanted to start their own business. And we had a lot of those customers who were or are still new entrepreneurs, and we were able to break even within about a year and a half. So by 2012, we were in a very good, financial shape. But then I felt uncomfortable not, growing the team. That's when I should have done. That's exactly what I should have done. Now that we are growing, I should have hired salespeople, and I still regret to this day that I hadn't done that. So the lesson learned here is, take risks, because if you don't, you will never grow.
Uh-huh. It's a hard lesson sometimes.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, thank you, Yujin. You've been wonderful to speak with today, and thank you for your time and your wisdom. And I
Thank
want,
you for having us.
of course, and I want to thank all of the listeners. If you enjoyed today's episode, I'd appreciate it if you hit the subscribe button, because we'll have lots of other wonderful guests just like Yujin in the future. And I just want to say until next time, keep moving forward. And as Yujin said, take risks.